There's some conspiracy theory going on behind the new 24-hour hold rule that was established by the Brazilian Central Bank on crypto and stablecoin transfers to international exchanges and self-custody wallets. But I'll show you what is really behind this new rule that will come into force in January 1st, 2027. The Brazilian Central Bank made a public announcement and issued a new rule with the new measures to prevent fraud with virtual assets. We see a lot of good news about the Brazilian PIX, but there is also another side of this story. Brazilian financial institutions have been under constant cyber attacks. The goal of those digital criminals is to access the reserve accounts of financial institutions with the Brazilian Central Bank and move the funds outside of the Brazilian financial system. The first big case happened last year, when the hackers took over about $140 million, turning part of this in crypto through OTC desks and exchanges. According to CoinDesk, a research showed that between 30 and 40 million were converted to Bitcoin, Ether, and USDT. A couple of months later, the Brazilian police made an operation to arrest several people that were part of the cyber attack. But this didn't stop there. Early this year, there was also another big case. On a Sunday night, the target was BTG Pactual, one of the leading financial institutions in Brazil. The bank identified the misappropriation of about 100 million reais or $20 million. This was just another case between several others that were kept confidential. This systemic issue is the primary reason for the new 24-hour hold rule. This is a direct, defensive response to a series of high-profile security failures that have affected the financial industry in Brazil since last year. But the 24-hour hold is a flexible mandate. It is not a rigid, universal obligation that applies to every single transaction without exception. While the 24-hour hold is the general rule for transfers to international exchanges and self-custody wallets, the virtual asset service provider has the autonomy to create its own internal rules. If the virtual asset service provider has a robust risk assessment framework analyzing the customer base, the destination of the transaction, and the transaction history, it can bypass the 24-hour hold. This is written in the new regulation. If the provider can prove the transaction is legitimate and not fraudulent, it can process that transfer immediately. This approach forces the industry to mature. It is no longer enough to simply move money. The hardest part of this business is having the intelligence and the systems to know exactly who you're transferring funds to and why. This regulatory shift also creates a clear path for the central bank to require legal responsibility in case of failure to prevent fraud. By setting this standard, the central bank is effectively saying that if you are playing this market, you're responsible for the security of the system. Any financial institution currently handling cross-border payments already has policies in place to ensure funds are legitimate and the counterparties are not criminals. The central bank is now ensuring that this level of due diligence is standard across virtual asset service providers. In my view, there shouldn't be a debate about whether this is a bad thing for the system. This is a necessary evolution. The central bank is taking care of the security of the Brazilian financial system at a moment when it has been under constant attack. If you like this video, hit the like button. Thanks for watching.